Dawn rose over a quieted world, and the thunder finally fell silent. The smoke of the Titan War thinned, revealing mountains reborn from fire. On the highest peak, 3 brothers stood where the storm had broken. Zeus held a sleeping bolt, its light now a promise rather than a threat. Poseidon planted his trident, and mist curled like newborn seas. Hades lowered his dark helm, and the shadows obeyed. Around them, the wind carried the last echoes of fallen thunder. The earth exhaled, remembering what peace felt like. In the hush, the fates measured a new length of thread. "Let order begin," Zeus said, and the sky brightened. The Cyclopes emerged from caverns, blinking at honest sunlight. Their anvils rang again, not for war, but for building. Bronze pillars rose where craters had smoked. Bridges arced over valleys like frozen lightning. White stone gleamed as if it remembered the sun's first day. From fog and cliff, Olympus took shape. It was not merely a palace, it was an idea made of stone. Every column spoke of law, every stair of ascent. Doves circled the highest terrace, cutting ribbons through light. The world, bruised but living, watched from below. The gods gathered where the clouds laid a silver floor. Hestia tended a simple flame at the mountain's heart. It burned without smoke, warm as a mother's hands. "From this hearth," she said, "let harmony spread." The fire nodded in golden agreement. Hephaestus set his forges in thunder-carved halls. Sparks flew like star maps no one had yet read. Hermes stitched the first banners, quick as thought. They fluttered with symbols the wind itself could understand. Apollo tuned a lyre, and the air learned to listen. Themis brought tablets of law, cool as river stone. On them were lines older than memory and younger than hope. Athena read those lines, her eyes calm and unblinking. "Justice must be swift, but never blind to mercy," she said. Wisdom stepped into the new age like a trusted captain. Artemis drew a silver arc across the dawn. Her arrow landed where forests needed guardians. Deer lifted their heads, feeling the vow settle in the leaves. Demeter walked the terraces, and seedlings straightened. Fields whispered thank you in the language of green. A council ring was laid with seats of equal light. The thrones did not tower. They listened. Hera entered, stately as a sunrise that knows its hour. On her brow rested dignity. At her heart, order for families yet unborn. Zeus stood to meet her, not as conqueror, but as partner. The mountain held its breath for a softer thunder. Vows were spoken in words that never cracked. The clouds showered petals shaped like small flames. From their union, the air learned the cadence of rule. Olympus settled a little deeper into the sky. Then came the division of realms. The brothers cast lots, trusting fate as judge. The sky rose to Zeus, wide and bright and binding. The sea fell to Poseidon, deep with secret corridors. The underworld opened to Hades, solemn and steady. None took more than was given, none took less than required. Beneath the lots, love held the ground. "Guard what is yours," said Zeus, "and we will keep the world whole." "I will keep its tides faithful," said Poseidon. "I will keep its endings honest," said Hades. Messengers flew, and treaties crossed valleys like swallows. Nymphs returned to springs that now ran clear. Rivers remembered their banks and stayed. Mountains remembered their roots and stood. The moon took its proper distance from longing. Stars rehearsed their roots with quiet precision. Seasons tried on their cloaks, one after another. Winter bowed to spring without bitterness. Summer shared the table with harvest. Balance at last tasted like bread. From Olympus, laws were spoken like music. Oaths gained weight and stopped drifting. Guests found tables waiting where doors had once been closed. Fires learned the difference between warmth and ruin. Storms learned the difference between warning and wrath. Even silence learned when to step aside. Mortals looked up and saw a ceiling of mercy. They built altars not from fear, but from gratitude. Offerings smelled of bread, olives, and clean water. The gods accepted what was given and returned what was needed. Yet Zeus kept one hand on the bolt, not to strike, but to remind power of its leash. "Order is a living thing," he said to Athena. "Then feed it with fairness," she replied. On distant shores, Poseidon taught sailors the grammar of waves. Ships learned to bow and not break. In hidden caverns, Hades lit lanterns for gentle crossings. The dead learned to walk without fear of getting lost. Hermes painted roads where there had been only guesses. Travelers began to believe in arrival. Apollo's songs taught the morning how to open. Artemis taught the night how to protect. Demeter taught the earth how to remember. Hestia taught homes how to speak softly. Hephaestus taught metal how to be kind. Hera taught vows how to stay. Athena taught rulers how to listen before deciding. Zeus taught thunder how to guard, not govern. And Olympus, newborn yet eternal, watched with patient light. Thus began the age of the gods, where peace wore armor and power wore grace. But stories never end. They open doors. In the distance, a spark flickered in the minds of men. Fire carried the memory of a promise. The first cities rehearsed their courage. The first laws practiced being just. The first sailors trusted horizons they could not see. The first kings learned to kneel before they stood. The first poets learned to sing what the heart cannot hold. And from the mountain that touched dawn, the gods listened. For they knew the world had only just begun to breathe. On quiet nights, the constellations retold the war. On bright mornings, they retold the mercy. Children asked why lightning now slept. Parents answered, because it has a home. Farmers traced furrows as if writing hymns. Fishermen cast nets like prayers that floated. Judges weighed words, not faces. Builders stacked stones as if stacking days of peace. Travelers carried stories between firesides. Priests washed altars with clean rain. Hecatonkeuries stood as living fortresses at the world's edges. Their many hands kept chaos from finding a grip. The Cyclopes hammered gifts no one had yet earned. Those gifts waited like patient stars behind cloud. Fates kept measuring, but now their thread sang. The muses climbed the terraces and breathed on sleeping arts. Statues opened their stone eyelids to see their own beauty. Paint found meaning in the curve of a hand. Dance learned the mathematics of joy. Words learned how to carry light. Sometimes thunder walked the garden paths of Olympus. It did not break the flowers. Sometimes waves threw their shoulders at the cliffs. They did not bite the shore. Sometimes shadows lengthened in the underworld. They did not swallow the road. Discipline became the gentleness of strong things. Mercy became the courage of wise things. Hope became the memory of promised things. And time became the wide river that carried all of it forward. One evening, Zeus stood where cloud met flame. The world below glittered like an oath well kept. "Let the ages come," he said, "and we will answer them." Hera joined him, gaze steady as law. "Let homes be brave," she said, "and we will bless them." Poseidon lifted his trident and spoke to the tides. "Let journeys be honest," he said, "and I will return them." Hades raised his lantern and spoke to the quiet. "Let endings be clear," he said, "and I will guide them." The stars approved with 1,000 silent nods. Athena mapped the future like a captain charts reefs. Hermes sketched trade winds between city and city. Demeter taught granaries the art of patience. Hestia reminded palaces to imitate cottages. Hephaestus forged hinges for doors that would not slam. Apollo sealed treaties with the warmth of noon. Artemis patrolled borders with the grace of snow. Themis weighed new questions no one had yet asked. Justice stayed awake, even when the world slept. Olympus proved that peace is work worth doing. The old scars of war faded, but never vanished. They were left on purpose, like notes in the margin. Each scar said, "Remember what it cost to be gentle." Each scar said, "Keep watch, but do not fear." So the gods kept watch in ways mortals could feel. A breeze that closed a window before the rain. A wave that turned aside from a sailor's dream. A lantern that never went out on the longest road. A bolt that stayed sleeping when anger woke. These were the quiet miracles of order. Poets visited Olympus in their sleep and returned with music. Judges dreamed of scales that balanced by themselves. Children drew mountains with doors in the sky. Lovers promised each other in the language of flame. Kings learned that crowns are weights, not wings. Queens learned that mercy is a blade that never rusts. Soldiers learned that courage is best measured by restraint. Priests learned that silence can be a loud prayer. Merchants learned that fair weights make heavy fortunes. Healers learned to listen for the body's small gods. The years moved like a procession under a bright canopy. Festivals rose like sunrise and set like satisfied song. Altars gathered stories the way beaches gather shells. People kept what mattered and let the tide take the rest. The world did not become perfect, it became faithful. Storms still came, but they arrived with meaning. Quakes still spoke, but they spoke in warnings. Night still fell, but it fell into trustworthy hands. Day still rose, but it rose with humility. And Olympus still stood, a lighthouse in cloud. From that lighthouse the gods saw distant threads tightening. New tales waited beyond the horizon of peace. Heroes were already sharpening choices. Prophecies practiced their steps in the wings. Destiny wrote invitations in the dust. The age would test its own foundations, as all ages must. But the first cornerstone had been laid true. The first beam had been set level. The first light had been shared instead of hoarded. And so the age of the gods began, with thunder guarding the sky and order holding the world.